I wasn't supposed to find that receipt because the apartment was supposed to be empty for 6 months. No tenants, no visitors, no activity. And yet, it was dated 3 days before I moved in. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a random piece of trash left behind by movers or cleaning staff. But then I saw the name printed on it. Arthur Vance. That was the moment my fresh start stopped feeling like a new beginning and started feeling like I had walked into something already in progress, something unfinished, something watching. And the worst part? I don't think Arthur ever left that apartment. Before I tell you what happened next, you should know something important. People always think stories like this are exaggerations, urban legends, internet fiction. That's what I thought too, until I started hearing things at night that didn't belong to me, and until I realized that the apartment I moved into wasn't actually empty when I arrived. Moving into apartment 4B should have felt like a win. It was cheap, too cheap for the area. Spacious, high ceilings, thick brick walls that blocked out almost all city noise. The kind of place you assume is either a hidden gem or a mistake waiting to be discovered. I chose not to question it. Because when you're desperate for a new start, you ignore the warning signs that don't fit your budget. The first few days were normal. Boxes everywhere, takeout on the counter. The strange feeling of sleeping in a place that still smells like someone else's life. But what stood out most was the silence. Not peaceful silence. Heavy silence. The kind that makes you aware of every small sound your own body makes. On the 4th day, it was raining. I decided to move the furniture around. The bedroom felt wrong, like it was arranged for someone else's routine. That's when I noticed the wardrobe. Old, oak wood, heavy enough that it probably hadn't been moved in years. It stood slightly too far from the wall, just enough to bother me. So I pulled it forward. Dust fell in thick layers, and something small slid across the floor. At first, I thought it was paper trash, but when I picked it up and smoothed it out, I realized it was a receipt. It was from a grocery store just a few blocks away. Normal items: milk, bread, wine. And then something strange. A single white rose. That detail didn't sit right with me. Not because it was expensive or unusual, but because it felt intentional, personal, like something you don't buy for yourself. My eyes moved to the bottom of the receipt. The loyalty card name: Arthur Vance. I stopped breathing for a second, because the landlord had told me this apartment had been empty for half a year. No recent tenants, no activity. Just a quiet reset. But this receipt told a different story. A recent story. 3 days before I arrived. I looked around the room again. That's when I noticed something I didn't see before. Scratches. Deep ones. Near the base of the wall behind the wardrobe. Not random. Not old damage. They looked desperate. Like someone had been trying to dig through the floor or escape from beneath it. A thought hit me that I immediately tried to reject and failed. What if someone didn't move out of this apartment? What if they disappeared from it? I stopped breathing for a second, because the landlord had told me this apartment had been empty for half a year. No recent tenants, no activity. Just a quiet reset. But this receipt told a different story. A recent story. 3 days before I arrived. I looked around the room again. That's when I noticed something I didn't see before. Scratches. Deep ones. Near the base of the wall behind the wardrobe. Not random. Not old damage. They looked desperate. Like someone had been trying to dig through the floor or escape from beneath it. A thought hit me that I immediately tried to reject and failed. What if someone didn't move out of this apartment? What if they disappeared from it? That night, I didn't sleep well. Every sound in the apartment felt amplified. The pipes, the wind, the building settling, or something else moving where it shouldn't. At around 2:13 a.m., I heard something that made me sit up in bed. A faint, dragging sound. Above me, or inside the walls. It stopped the moment I focused on it, like it knew I was listening. I told myself it was paranoia, stress, imagination filling in gaps. But then came the smell. A faint a floral scent, like a white rose. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I went downstairs. I needed confirmation that I wasn't losing my mind. The building had an older woman living in 3A, Mrs. Gable. She opened the door slowly, like she already knew why I was there. When I mentioned Arthur Vance, her expression changed immediately. Not confusion, fear. You shouldn't be asking that name, she said quietly. I showed her the receipt. Her hand trembled when she saw it. He was here, I said, recently. She shook her head. No, she whispered. He wasn't supposed to be. That sentence didn't make sense, so I asked her to explain. She looked down the hallway before speaking, like she was afraid the building itself was listening. They said he moved out, she said, but nobody saw him leave. I asked what she meant, and that's when she said something I will never forget. They found his apartment empty, but not empty in the way you think. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? She hesitated, then finally said, It looked like someone left in a hurry, but the doors were still locked from the inside. And then she closed the door. I couldn't let it go, so I went to the grocery store from the receipt. The cashier didn't remember the receipt, but the manager did. And when I mentioned Arthur Vance, his expression changed instantly. He came in every day for about a week, the manager said. Always the same items. I asked him what kind of person Arthur was. He paused, then said something worse than anything I expected. He looked like someone who was being followed, even when he was alone. I showed him the receipt again. He nodded slowly, then added, One time, he asked me something strange. What? The manager leaned closer. He asked if there was a way to disappear without anyone noticing. That sentence stayed with me longer than anything else, because people don't ask questions like that unless they already know something is coming. Back in my apartment, I looked at the receipt again, this time more carefully. That's when I noticed something I had completely missed before. On the back, faint writing, barely visible unless held under direct light. Coordinates, not random ones, specific, intentional, and written in a shaky hand that didn't look like it was done calmly. It looked like it was written fast, while running, or hiding. I realized then something I didn't want to accept. This wasn't a leftover receipt. Quiet. Almost apologetic. Don't stay here. Then, silence. The next morning, I started packing. Fast. No logic, no hesitation. Just instinct. Every object in the apartment suddenly felt chujim, not mine. Like I had been borrowing a life that wasn't meant for me. As I packed, I noticed the wardrobe again. It wasn't fully against the wall anymore. Slightly shifted. Just enough to reveal the scratches more clearly. And for a second, I could swear the marks looked fresh, like they had been made last night. I didn't wait to understand it. I left. Immediately. No police. No questions. Because something about that building told me the worst truth. Not everything that happens inside it is meant to be investigated. Some things are meant to be forgotten. I don't live there anymore, but sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and I smell something faint in the air. A floral scent. Soft, clean, like a white rose left on a table that no one remembers placing. And sometimes, just for a moment, I wonder if Arthur ever made it out, or if he's still trying to leave. From somewhere no one can see. If you've ever moved into a place that felt slightly wrong, like something about it didn't belong to you, write it in the comments. I read every story, and I promise you, some of them are worse than mine. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. Not because I upload often, but because some places don't stop telling their stories, even after you leave them.